Alright guys, welcome back to our Resident Evil movie review series. This is Resident Evil 3, Extinction, made in 2007. Resident Evil 3 Extinction took the premise of Mad Max and tried to mix it with a zombie movie. In all retrospect, those two things sound like they should work together. Mad Max, post-apocalyptic movie, very badass, very cool. Zombies, post-apocalyptic, shit like that. You think that those two things would meld together and make a perfect movie, especially within the world of Resident Evil, something we've never seen before, where the world has already ended and we're in the desert and we get to see different environments with the biohazard weapons and things like that. That should have been a match made in heaven. It would be something I would really want to see in a new Resident Evil game, to be honest with you. But this movie, oh my god, this movie. So if you remember in my last movie review, when we talked about Resident Evil Apocalypse, when we talked about how Alice basically becomes super OP at the end of the movie. She's basically as strong as a fucking Darth Vader character at this point. She knows the Force, basically. And in this movie, it goes to the extreme extent. Alice at this point is so overpowered that I think she would be able to take on Darth Vader and Neo from the Matrix. That's how strong and crazy Alice is within this movie. With her powers, her fighting skills, her strength, her agility, everything. They went to like times a million with how Alice is in this movie. So what's the plot? The plot of this movie basically takes place in the deserts of Nevada. It's about 6 months after the Apocalypse movie happened. Alice is broken off from the group, and the group is barely surviving out in the desert with all these random people that we all know are basically cannon fodder to be eaten by the zombies later on. And an introduction of a character I was not expecting to see and really blew me away. I thought the actress, don't get me wrong, I thought the actress for this movie who played this character did a really good job in this movie and in the next movie. But Claire Redfield makes her first appearance in the Resident Evil movies.
This is Claire Redfield. She's the one who put this convoy together.
Thank you so much for your help.
Shocked me at first, it really did. The first time I ever saw this, it shocked me. I did not think that they would incorporate someone from Resident Evil 2 into this movie that has definitely nothing to do with the video games at this point. At this point, this is where the movie franchise really breaks away from what the video games were, except for a few random things thrown in that don't make too much sense. So the plot of the story takes up with the survivors of the last movie, Carlos and everyone else, surviving on the outskirts of the desert. And Alice is kind of following behind them, not letting her presence be known. She's trying to stay off the grid from Umbrella. Another thing thrown in this movie that took me for a loop was Wesker was finally thrown in. Wesker being one of my top 3 favorite characters of the Resident Evil series of the games, for sure. And ended up being one of my favorite characters of the Resident Evil movie universe.
Dr. Isaacs, how good of the science division to join us.
Shaman Wesker, I've been busy.
Continue with your research, Doctor. While it still is your research. This meeting is adjourned.
So the plot for this movie is actually really thinly veiled. there's not really a whole lot that goes on here that's really complicated. It's Umbrella still experimenting with zombies out in this desert that just so happens, ironically, to be really close to where Alice is hiding with this group of survivors. Umbrella's trying to pacify zombies and make them into useful tools that once the world stops being fucked up, they can use them for, you know, weaponized things or whatever they want to use them for. The doctor, who is really interested in getting Alice back, has made a million clones of her, and we get to watch them die over and over again because it's not the original Alice. Just really random and strange things thrown in, I think, for filler for this movie. Because like I said, this plot is very thinly veiled. It's not very complicated. In reality, it's just Umbrella trying to reacquire Alice the whole time, while Alice has a shitload of really awesome slow-mo fight scenes that the Matrix would be proud of. Now, why there's random things thrown in from the video games that wouldn't make much sense here, like having all of the crows or ravens inside of this movie, but it was something that really should have been put in Resident Evil 2 Apocalypse, let's be honest. It would have made more sense if the hunters were in this movie that Albert Wesker controls from the video games than the crows. Sadly, there's a lot of characters in this movie that the movie company, obviously Touchstone, really wanted you to care about. But in reality, it was impossible for you to actually give a crap about these characters or feel emotional when they died, because you almost get no time to learn about who they are or care about their characters in any way. So when they do die, you're kind of just like, oh well, when do I get to see Alice do some more slow-mo shit? Oh, there it is. But we find out later on that the reason why Umbrella wants her so badly is because within Alice's blood holds the cure to the T-virus. Because apparently the T-virus so far is the only thing that's broken out. So that's why they're trying so desperately to clone her and find another copy of her, or just reacquire Alice altogether. What I really did appreciate and really did like is showing how Umbrella operated. Umbrella, like I've said before, is something that's always been really interesting to me as a kid. Their whole weaponry program, their secrecy, and having these really clean and sterile labs mixed with these really nasty biohazard weapons, monsters and stuff like that, was always a really cool mix to me and always interested me as a kid. And whenever I get to see more lore thrown around about Umbrella and how they work, especially with their little hologram meetings that they had within this movie, like it was the fucking Jedi Council and stuff like that, I thought it was really, really cool. And having Albert Wesker thrown in, I think the movie would have really tanked for me as far as my attention span if Wesker was not in the movie to hold it together. Alice is cool. Having Claire Redfield thrown in was confusing, but still kind of neat. But overall, this movie is really starts taking a turn into sci-fi, low-budget movie to me. Even though you can tell there's some really high-budget set pieces thrown in, and explosions and fight scenes, but there's not a lot of actual story going on. It's so bottom of the barrel and so easy that you're really only there to like go along for the ride and watch Alice kill and fight zombies. The ending fight scene was something that could have been very cool, with having the doctor being mutated finally into some sort of giant biohazard weapon that can regenerate itself and is just as strong as Alice. But they end it so quick and so fast and so boring that it really just kind of drives home the point that these movies are gonna kind of get worse the next time you see one. That's what it spoke to me after I finished it. I was like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to come back to me those things in the movie theater when I first saw these, because this is the first time since the movie theater for Extinction and Afterlife that I had seen these in the theaters. This is the first time since the theaters, and it all came back to me and was like, okay, this is where it really took a turn. This is where this movie series really started going downhill. So if you really want an honest review of this movie, I would probably give it a 5 out of 10, maybe a 4. It's really, really not that good. The story, like I said, is so easy and so just like whatever. The characters are whatever. Carlos this time had a little bit more character development, but he fucking dies. And his death scene isn't really that cool. You're just kind of like, okay, he's dead. And all the survivors from the last movie end up dying too. And it's all in such a pathetic, lazy way that it never felt really that good. Like I said, the coolest parts of this movie are the fight scenes with Alice. I feel like this is going to be a building trend, because in my next movie review where we talk about Afterlife, like I said, the Alice fights are what keeping you glued to your screen to see more of that. So yeah guys, that is my thoughts and review of Resident Evil Extinction. Just a very confusing movie, very lost. This is where the Resident Evil movie franchise really felt like it was lost. It's just wandering around in the desert, that it just showed you, not knowing what direction it's going or what the fuck it's trying to represent anymore. It was such a missed opportunity to have a Mad Max type movie and a zombie movie mixed in together, especially with the Resident Evil universe, where there are literally so much monsters and biohazards at your disposal to use. Alice's new powers that she has in this movie are so underused that it's just kind of lackluster all around. So yeah, in most honesty, it's probably, you know, now that I'm talking about it even more, it's probably a 4. For most audiences, I think fell off after this movie. Everyone that saw these after, I have a feeling were hardcore Resident Evil fans, or just people that wanted to see a train wreck horror movie come out from Hollywood. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe. This is Forrest from Retro or Die, and I will see you on our next movie review, Resident Evil Afterlife.